TGI Friday. Let's make sure we are in the group. Welcome to episode 2 of our immigration series, where I'm teaching you tips to help you succeed in your green card journey. I'm Attorney Ify, your host. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about 5 mistakes that couples make when they're applying for their green card through marriage. Are we live in the Facebook group? Let's see. So come on in, bring your notes. It's about lunchtime right now. If you're watching me during your lunch break, try to take some notes. Or better still, you can leave a comment and I'll answer you live to help you feel supported during this time. Filing for immigration is certainly not an easy journey because there are several requirements and several things that pop up that you may not be expecting, but with the guide of a professional, you certainly be set up for success. So I'm glad for those of you who have been joining us in all our live sessions. Today's episode 2. Again, we're talking about the biggest mistakes that couples make in their green card application. Okay, so I'm setting up this live, making sure that people in our Facebook group can actually join in, but I'd love to know where you all are watching me from. I'm in Charlotte right now, Charlotte, North Carolina, but I help clients nationwide. So tell me in the chats where you're watching from, and we can connect and, just help one another. All right, I'm an immigrant myself from Nigeria, so doing this, helping immigrants here is such a blessing for me personally, because I can certainly pass on some of the things I have learned over time living here, doing this business, this law firm, right? So this is my business as a lawyer, right? So it's very interesting, right, how that works, because I went to law school to learn about practicing law, but then you come out and you end up doing something like owning a business. So pretty cool, right? So if you're here as an immigrant and your hope is to eventually set up your family in the US, and you need a green card for that, you're in the right place watching this channel right now. We talk about immigration tips to help you before you start the process, and then in the middle somewhere, if you make a mistake and there's something going on, I can certainly help you understand what to do next. So all of you coming in, welcome in. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, and I believe the Facebook group. I'll just hope that that's showing up there. I can't see it right now, but okay. I'm going to get into the material. It's quite interesting today when I was putting it together last night. It was quite funny, some of the pictures I chose, because many clients that I've worked with, people that I've talked to who are ready to apply for their green card, they don't really understand what USCIS is looking for. So I want to show you in this live what USCIS is looking for in order for you to qualify for a marriage-based green card. All right. Laura, welcome in. Laura is excited for today. So am I. I'm excited for today's live. It is a very interesting topic because the number one question that I get from people that come to my office is, what kind of evidence do I need for a marriage-based green card? So they, obviously this is very important, because if you don't submit the right documents, right, USCIS might not believe that your marriage is real, right? The main evidence for any relationship-based green card is that you must confirm that it is bona fide, right? And bona fide is a fancy way of saying real. Okay, so you can only do this through documents, and that's why people always want to know what type of evidence USCIS is looking for. Right? It is not automatic for you to get your green card just because you're married. Some people ask me that, surprisingly, as well. All right, so you still need to apply. Okay, so just to recap what we're uh, doing this month with our immigration conversations, we're talking about tips to help you reopen your denied green card. We talked about that last time, right? And today we're talking about marriage-based green cards, and throughout the month we're going to talk about VAWA and I-601 waivers. So make sure you tune in. If you're just seeing us for the first time, right, you can subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next session. All right, it's pretty fun to talk to you all about these things. Like I said, as an immigrant myself, I'm passionate about passing on this information to empower other immigrants so they can build that successful life that they've always dreamed of, right? It's you can do it. It's within your reach. You just need to fix your papers, set up yourself for success so you can win even more. All right. For some people, unfortunately, they've already gotten to a point where they now have to leave the US. I talked to a guy the other day, but we'll get into that. But wherever you find yourself, if you're in the US right now, you can go for these benefits, and that's what you deserve right now. So yeah. So what is USCIS looking for when they're asking for bona fide relationship? All right. What are they looking for? Many people think that they're looking for, proof of you and your spouse in bed, making out, being all lovey-dovey, because that's how you show you're in a relationship, right? But you're wrong if that's your mindset. Because bona fide doesn't mean lovey-dovey, okay? It doesn't mean romance and all that stuff I just showed you right now. So some people are nervous because they don't really live close to their spouse, or they basically just met this person, so they don't have a lot of pictures together, right? So they get nervous because they don't really understand that bona fides is not really about this stuff that you see here. It's cute. I mean, we got a lot of photos like this. It's cute and I appreciate it. It's great. But if you're applying for a marriage-based green card, right, USCIS is really looking to see that you actually share a life with this person, and this green card is necessary for you all to build this shared life together. Okay? This is exactly the point of all those pictures and all those statements and all those evidence that you're putting together, right? Because even if you don't live together, you can still show a shared life. And I'll tell you different ways you can do that for those of you who are newlyweds, right? Because newlyweds are a special niche that I focus on at this firm, mostly because they typically don't have a lot of evidence, right? And when I started out, I was just mostly newlyweds would come to me because we're all just trying to figure it out. They were newlyweds. I was a new attorney, so I would just work with them. And slowly I figured out some of the ways that people who barely, just got married, right? Because there's no requirement, there's no wait time on when you can actually file once you get married. So let's just say you met someone, you dated 3 months, you got married, and you're filing. Obviously you don't have a lot of evidence, right? So there are ways around it. My very first marriage green card case in 2019 got approved like January 2020. So exciting. I figured it out from that case because they didn't live together. They had a little bit of an age difference too, but we worked it out because I understood at that point. I don't even know how I did. I believe from just research and being connected to AILA and all the resources that you have as an immigration attorney, I was able to nuance that evidence. And next thing you know, they got approved at the interview. Those were the good old days, right? where you can show pictures with you and your spouse. There's grandma, there are the kids in there. You're doing different activities, not just both of you, making out and thinking like that's what they want to see, right? This is just for your private memories. This is how you get your green card, through family. All right? Amen? If I'm preaching, let me know in the comments, if this applies to you and you're learning something today. Give me a thumbs up, okay? Yeah, so be mindful about the evidence that you're submitting if you want to avoid RFEs. Don't just send them 50 pictures that don't really mean anything, all right? Be intentional. Show your shared finances. If you have a joint account, make sure you're actually using it, because a joint account doesn't mean anything if there's no transactions, all right? Talk about who is taking care of the kids, who cleans, or who's just in charge of, doing whatever, like how you split the responsibilities at home, right? Because that's what's expected. Show how you travel together, explore, right? Because you're an immigrant, you just came to this country. Your main goal wasn't to just come here and work and pay bills and that's it, right? I hope, right? Right? I hope your main goal was not to just come to this country and start working and sitting at home, popping out kids or whatever, right? You need to explore the world. That's why your green card is needed, so you can become a U.S. citizen after that, and then have the opportunity to travel outside the U.S. and stay as long as you want, no issues. So keep that in mind. If you're newlywed and they're gonna certainly ask you to remove conditions in the next 2 years, you're gonna need to file that I-751. So you need to show them what you were doing the 2 years that you finally got your green card. Okay, it's not going to just be, oh, my spouse doesn't like taking pictures. That excuse is not going to fly, because you are applying for a benefit and it's your burden to actually prove that you qualify. Otherwise, you'd be denied. Okay, so mistake number one that many couples are making is providing weak evidence of marriage. All right, this is the most common mistake, because if they don't talk to a professional, they don't get the opportunity to really understand the reason or the weight of each evidence and why they're going to need to provide certain things. They're just not going to know that information. Okay, so they will be like the couples that I showed you in the beginning, who will just submit a few pictures of them standing together, doing fake kisses or whatever. And then they'll be wondering, why didn't they believe us? Our marriage is real. We don't have anything to hide, right? So USCIS doesn't really know you like that. They need your evidence to prove that you are who you say you are. Okay? So those couples that are making mistakes, that are not learning, they are submitting just a few photos, no financial records, no shared lease or mortgage. Even though living together is not 100% a requirement, like I said, I've helped couples who didn't live together. Okay, and for those people who claim to live together, right, they need to see your shared life. This is actually the reason why you should never lie at an interview or lie to a USCIS agent on any application, or just never lie. Okay, because if you say you live together, they're gonna need to see that lease, and then they're gonna need to see your life together, like how you do things on a day-to-day. That's why sometimes USCIS agents will visit you at home, because they need to see. Okay? And if they come to that home and they look in the closet and your clothes are not there, they're like, well, you don't live here, so this must not be a real marriage. Therefore, you're denied. Or maybe they'll send you a notice of intent to deny, whatever. It just depends on the officer and what they want to do. Okay? So if you're in this category, if you're one of these couples who has made a mistake like this, you already filed, you can still fix it by talking to a professional. I've put my links in the comments. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, the link will be in the comment where you can reach out for a one-on-one conversation. Let's talk about your evidence. Okay, it's best when you haven't filed, but if you already filed, there's nothing we can do. We can't change the past. You have to just move on. But you can get support to make sure that if any request for evidence comes up or anything, and there's any question about your evidence, you can, be able to work on that. Okay. The second most common mistake is inconsistent stories. Inconsistent stories at USCIS interviews. This is surprisingly common, and it's for people who, again, don't have legal guidance. They don't have a professional that trains them and helps them prepare for the interview. So when I talk about preparation, sometimes people look at me funny. They think we're talking about making up answers, or they think I'm going to tell them what to say, right? You should never lie to an official, never make up answers. But you do need to prepare to make sure that you and your spouse are on the same page about whatever it is that they're going to ask you. Okay? When it comes to when you got married, how long you've been dating, those types of details need to be discussed so that if they separate you, you'll be able to answer the same and your answers will be consistent. Because inconsistent answers, it's just a red flag. It's just like you don't even know each other. Okay, do you even know this man? Like, who even is this man? They will just deny you immediately. Because if it's your spouse, you all have been in relationships. If you really like someone, you're going to know every single thing about them. But if you're struggling when they separate you and the person is not there to, give you the answers, the marriage is not real. So remember that the main goal for USCIS right now is to determine if the relationship is bona fide. And a bona fide relationship is a real relationship, and you can answer questions about your daily routines, your living arrangements, who lives in the house with you, right? How you met. It's just so interesting how that simple question, how you met, really trips up some people. Like I don't understand. Were you guys not in the same space, like meeting each other? But that just makes me really understand how preparation is necessary, because they were in the same space, they experienced the same thing, but one person may not even realize that you were hitting on them, or this was a thing where we actually started dating. They probably just thought, oh, you're just being nice, we're just going out, whatever. And then they have different rules about when you start a relationship, right? So you both need to discuss about that to make sure you're on the same page and you actually have the same mindset about that. So it's very simple, but it can certainly create issues and raise suspicion if you're applying for your green card through marriage. All right? So, any questions while we're going? You can drop it in the comments and I will respond once we get towards the end. All right, today's topic is certainly one of my favorites because I started out this practice just mostly filing marriage-based green cards. Okay, that was the easiest one, quite frankly. Compared to employment-based or even asylum or even VAWA, right? Those trauma-based filings were more just complex and required a lot of nuance and emotions that I just didn't have starting out. So marriage-based green card is something I've done for quite some time now. The way the years are moving, it is literally almost 10 years, right? I've been helping couples with different relationship status, different economic status, right? Some people who have to live with family, some people who are super rich, they want to even live abroad. They have so many things. Well, I'm like, you can't do that. You have to wait to get your travel permit. So different types of couples are going to have different needs. And that's why I encourage you to book a call. My number is on the screen if you're watching right now, but my link to just book directly with me is in the comments. Okay, so do that. I'm going to move on to the rest of the mistakes that couples are making in 2026. This is not the year to make mistakes because these people are out here ready to just deport anyone for any reason. All right, you don't need a criminal background anymore. In the past, it will take a criminal record for you to actually get put in ICE detention, but not anymore. So avoid all these mistakes to avoid unnecessary denials and delays in your process. Okay. So mistake number 3 that most couples are making right now is ignoring their immigration history. Certainly a huge one for couples right now. Because as you all have seen in the news, people are getting picked up at their interviews for visa overstays and prior immigration violations that maybe in the past didn't matter as much, but now it can lead to a whole more complex process. If you think VAWA is complex, try removal proceedings, okay, where you're dealing with a judge and having to plead your case so that you don't get removed. So do not ignore these mistakes. If you talk with me, the first thing I do, everyone that talks with me, the first thing I do is examine your past history because I understand how that could totally come back to bite you, no matter how long it's been, no matter what type of visa it was. All right, for example, you applied for a tourist visa and you claimed to be married just so you could get approved. But that was like 10 years ago. So you came here, you found a new wife, you just married, because obviously you were never married, right? It's just a lie. That's fraud and misrepresentation. And that would require an I-601 waiver, which we'll talk about later on in the series to help you understand how to qualify for that waiver if you're still interested in pursuing a green card. All right? So avoid this mistake and get it right the first time. Okay, so if for whatever reason you filed, you DIY'd, right? Because some newlyweds also love to DIY because they just feel like it's just not that complicated, right? Because how hard can it be? We're married, we love each other, we're gonna live together and just try to build and whatever, right? And I get that and I appreciate that because you are a newlywed that deserves to go for every benefit that's out there, what you deserve, right? So love it. But if you are one of those people from the beginning that send evidence that is not showing your real life together, is not really building any story, it's just pictures of you making out, right? They're going to send you a request for evidence. Sometimes it could be as serious as a notice of intent to deny. And this is typically after an interview when they ask you questions and you weren't able to answer beyond every reasonable doubt that you are really, a real couple, right? That this is not just for immigration benefits. So if you don't pass that test and they send you a notice of intent to deny, they'll tell you why. They will tell you about the inconsistencies. They'll point out some things. They'll be like, I came to your house and, you weren't there, right? All of that. And then you have to explain and respond to that to get some type of relief. Otherwise, if you don't respond and the days pass, we talked about that last time, you're going to just get denied and, you either start over or go into removal, right? timing is very critical in responding to any of these processes. So keep that in mind as you are going through this. All right. You can't ignore a USCIS notice. You just have to respond with something or make a plan B if you're not able to respond. Because some people are not able to respond to a request for evidence or notice of intent to deny because they have an abusive spouse. Right? I got a DM this morning, actually, from a lady saying, what if my spouse is withholding the documents? I should have actually invited her to this live because that's a typical form of abuse that most of the controlling people, that's what they're going to do, right? They will first of all delay your process, refuse to give you what you need, and then that would get you in trouble. So if you don't respond, you're going to get a final denial. And if you get a final denial, that could send you into removal proceedings, and it's a whole thing from there. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you respond once you get a notice. It's not a bad thing. It's actually the best thing because they could have just denied you straight up, right? But if they gave you a chance, don't miss out on your chance because you're scared. Talk to a professional. Like, I don't know how many times I can say that to you all, right? A lot of people just want to, they search on YouTube or they're in my Facebook group. You all are listening right now, and they just want to try to get free information and patch it together and thinking that will be the solution. But again, every couple is different. Every situation is different. You need evaluation of your specific situation to understand how to respond. And if you can't respond, to know what the next strategy is. Okay? So the final mistake that couples are making in 2025 is really filing without a strategy. Because like I said, if you got an RFE or NOID and your spouse is not giving you the documents and allowing you to respond, you need a strategy to self-petition or just file for a different category that you may qualify for. It could be asylum, it could be an employment-based category, whatever it is. You just need a strategy to avoid that instant denial that could happen. Because again, they don't need to give you that opportunity, with an RFE. They just don't. They could just send a denial straight away. And now you have to spend even more money trying to reopen that case, both on professional fees and government fees. Because when you go to a professional, when you already messed up the situation, it's certainly going to cost more because fixing the issue certainly costs more time and energy than just getting it right the first time. All right? If you don't know what evidence is required, or if you don't have enough evidence, there are other ways that you can prepare for an RFE because you already know that you may get an RFE just because, of your lack of evidence, right? You can already tell. But if you don't have guidance, you're not even going to know what to come up with next, right? It just seems like out of the blue, but this is why we are professionals, because we know how to think outside of the box. We know how to argue your legal relief, okay? We know how to argue for your rights. So you have to finesse the rules. And this is just what going to law school, teaches you, how to finesse the rules for you. Because every lawyer, you ask any question, there's no yes or no. There's always a maybe, because you can always find a solution. So don't hide. Don't be afraid. Just get in touch with a professional so you can understand what's necessary for you. Because if a waiver is required, or let's say a past immigration record is really holding you back, like the guy I told you about earlier, he had 2 entries without a visa. So that history is certainly a huge block to any green card he could, ever qualify for, or whether through marriage or through his US citizen children, right? Except he can qualify for another humanitarian option that can waive that double entry without a visa. Okay, so that's the type of analysis an attorney will make about your case to understand where it can really go, to know what strategies would buy you more time, what strategies would send you straight into removal. Removal takes away your time because in the time frame that you're there, you need to really tell the judge what your relief is, like why they shouldn't deport you right now. And if you're in detention, even shorter, because you have to make a decision, sharp, sharp. Otherwise, you end up in detention for months, right? I saw this guy on Instagram the other day who was in detention for 10 months. He finally got deported, but I was like, why did you stay in detention for 10 months? Well, probably because he didn't have his strategy together, right? Because I'm like, if you had a U.S. citizen wife, which he did, and a U.S. citizen child, like, why could you not get bonded out? Why? Like, I just had so many questions I just couldn't understand. But again, that's the consequence of not having a professional. You don't really know what your options are, because the strategy for him would have simply been to bond him out and apply for his marriage-based green card, even though the requirements will be a lot higher, right? Because if you get married in detention, the requirements for bona fide relationship is a lot higher, like 85%. I think regular couples is like 50%, but those who get married in ICE detention is like 85% or something like that, right? But they already had a child together, so I just did not understand, except he's not telling us a lot about his past criminal, history. Maybe there's just something that I'm missing here, because it's only past criminal history that could be the block to him even getting qualified for bond. First of all, now that he's deported, he could still apply for a marriage-based green card to come in, but I believe there's still some time you have to wait, right? So there's just a lot that happens when you don't have strategy, when you don't have guidance, when you're just raw dogging the whole thing. Many couples think they can do it by themselves, and that's a mistake. So reach out to me. Let's get you together so you can stop wasting your time on stuff that is just not going to work, or that will sabotage you in the future. Because it might work for a little bit, right? Because you could file, get your work permit. It's like, hey, receipt notice, hey. But that's not the end, right? So people, once they get their work permit itself, they start talking to me anyhow, because they're like, yes, I have ID. What do you mean? I'm an American. Like, listen, work permit is just so temporary. Like, if they deny your I-485, that work permit is gone as well. So you need to really lock in, get your citizenship, and stop playing. Okay? So I'm going to tell you about this case, just a quick case example of someone who, thought they really, it was like, what was it really about, right? I could do it myself. I was like, great. Go ahead and file. So they DIY'd their process, submitted the photos, right? Everything was going great. Because like I said, you might win for a little bit, get that receipt notice, get a few documents, and, be in the system. Great. But they didn't realize that you have to calculate the household size and provide a I-864. This is the affidavit of support. Okay, they just did not factor that in and just submitted, the pictures. Like I said, they're making out, being all cute, whatnot. I'm like, that's not the end. If you're doing an adjustment of status case, you certainly need to add in proof of that income for the petitioner. Okay, and it's going to be based on the household size. That's how USCIS will determine if it's even enough. If you actually, are qualified or eligible. So if you don't earn enough income, you need to fix that. You need a strategy, right? And the strategy that we applied here was to add a joint sponsor to the application and also add more proof of bona fide marriage. That's what that means, proof of bona fide marriage. Because even though the RFE that they received was about the affidavit, when I looked at their case, the case that they DIY'd, because once I get onto a case, right, I need to make sure of whatever was filed before, because I'm not going to just go in blindly. And if you get denied or something else happens down the line, I just don't want that to happen, because now you're my client, right? So once they became my clients, I was able to start evaluating their previous filings, like everything they submitted. I do this by starting out with the FOIA process, right? Even though in 2026 they've been trying to make that a little difficult for us to get those records, right? I start out with FOIA so I can understand what was filed before. And once I can get a hold of that and see what was missing, whatever the RFE said, we'll respond to that and then just add more to make your case even stronger. So proof of bona fide relationship, added that to the cases as well as the joint sponsor information, and voila, case was approved. Okay, this is a prime example of how strategy can help you change the trajectory of your green card case. Because without proper strategy, you're just flailing and stressing. You don't really have anyone to really ask questions if things are getting delayed, right? You just don't really know what's going on. So get in touch with me today, and I'll help you through this process, prepare you for your interview. Make sure you're just not going in blind, right? That's the worst thing. My people suffer for lack of knowledge, and there's no need for you all to be suffering when you're connected to me. Like, that's not how we do things over here. We make things clear, right? Because like I said in the beginning, immigration, certainly a very complicated process. And with marriage-based specifically, things can really get complicated at different stages, right? It could be in the beginning when you're newlywed, you don't have a lot, or somewhere in the middle, you probably even got your 2-year green card, or maybe it's just still pending, right? And your spouse starts to act up. Or you have this immigration violation that's just hanging over your neck for like 10 plus years, and you really are praying to God that it just goes away, right? You just wanted to come to the US for a better life. That's the most common reason why people would misrepresent their intent on a tourist visa. That's the most common violation, misrepresenting their intent on a tourist visa. So whatever gets you in here, as soon as they come in here, they throw away their number and jack back, you will not see them again. Right? So we need to not do that, because if you talk with a professional, you know your real options to live in the country legally. You wouldn't be forced to start marrying people that you don't like and now ending up in abusive situations, because that's how that happens, right? So think about your future, think about what really matters to you, and make that move towards getting a professional on this journey. Okay, that's all that's left for you, because you already have everything, you just don't know it yet. You qualify. That's why you have the desire to actually apply. Okay, so if you face these challenges, I can certainly help you to turn it around for good. Okay? So if you've enjoyed today's live and you can relate to some of the stuff I've said, you can reach out with the links I've put in the comments to book a strategy call with me. Let's review your options. Okay? So I'm the baddie in the picture. Reach out to this baddie over here. That's what my sister said when I showed her my slides. I was very proud to have this presentation for you all today because I certainly want to make sure you are empowered throughout this journey. And there's no better way to do it than to talk to all of you all live at once and just really share. And we can, talk one-on-one. Dane, welcome in. And really just build that community, right? Feel trust one another and just understand that our goal is not to come to this country to suffer. Our goal is to come in here, get what we need to get, and move on to that life that is waiting for us. Okay, so that is it for me today. That was 30 minutes thereabout talking about the biggest mistakes. Now, for the next 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to get into the questions. I'm looking in the comments to see if I see any questions live, but throughout the week, I look in my Facebook group. We do daily Q&As, so people are asking questions that are relevant to what we talk about here in these sessions. So I'm going to answer some of those questions here now, again, to help you all. Like I said, let's just build that community of information, really have that resource for one another. So I'm going to pull up the questions here again. Thank you to my team for helping me put it all together. Putting the questions on StreamYard and getting the questions from the group, just really supporting me through this process. Really appreciate you all. And those of you watching, I've been seeing the numbers go up. Yay. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and like and subscribe if you're on YouTube so you can watch us live. Again, we come live every Friday just to share some tips and then also answer questions along the way. All right, so let's get to the best part, which is the Q&A part. We're going to answer those questions here. And I'm doing the corporate noises. We're going to answer those questions here. Well, something about just presenting to people always feels nerve-wracking. I don't know why. Like I said, I've been doing this for 10 plus years, but I'm still always going to double check and do all of that. That's just, I think, part of life. So appreciate you all for sticking with me and just being here as we do this. So I see a question coming in live, so I'll start with that first. Thank you. How do I say this name? Springs. Let's put it up here. Question from YouTube. So I'm going to answer that one first, and then we're going to get into the other questions. But yeah, this is really relating to what we talked about today. So great. Thank you, Sherpa, for being here. All right. So the question says, is having a baby and one on the way a good proof of bona fide marriage for I-751 purpose? Yes, Sherpa, this is certainly great evidence, especially if it's a removal of conditions, because that means in the past 2 years, you all have actually been using that green card for the purpose it was intended, which is build your family. So congrats. Okay, that's certainly one of the type of evidence, your children's birth certificates, that the USCIS will use and add that to your file, use as evidence or proof that you didn't just get married just for a green card. So yeah, great question. Great first question. All right. Now we've started. All we need to do sometimes is just break the ice. Once somebody asks, then it starts flowing. So thank you for starting that out for us. Let me see my other questions that I had here, which are really in line with what you just asked, because again, what we're focused on today is marriage-based green cards and trying to avoid those mistakes and using the best evidence that we can. Okay, so this one is one of the questions from my Facebook group about filing after an expired visa. Okay, so if my visa expired before I got married, can I still apply for a green card? Great question. Yes, you can apply for a green card if your visa is expired, especially if your spouse is a US citizen. That's going to be very important for you. So make sure you know the status of your spouse before you actually file. If your spouse is a permanent resident about to become a US citizen, right, make sure that time passes, because if not, you get denied. You're not going to qualify for a waiver, and it's going to be more hectic. So, but short answer, you can certainly apply even if you've been overstayed and had some violations in the past. Okay? Thank you very much. All right, next question from the Facebook group. What happens if my marriage is real, but we don't have a lot of joint documents? Oh, certainly a concern here. We talked about this during this session in the beginning. If you all go back to a few minutes where we talked about the types of evidence USCIS is actually looking for. And we know that on the top of that list is joint documents, joint finances, right? Shared responsibility, everything joint, shared, because this is relationship based. So if you don't have a lot of joint documents yet, right, you're going to apply what you have, get a lot of statements, especially from the US citizen spouse and the US citizen, family and friends, right? Not just your family and friends, because you're the immigrant. So if you don't have a lot of joint evidence yet, those statements are going to be powerful to prove how people have known you across time, right? Because you're trying to create a timeline here to show how it's been real from when you met, the families that you've met. Everybody can write a statement. And then once it's time for your interview, I'm sure it'll take about a year to a year and a half, right? This stuff does take time. You should have more evidence by that time to submit. So this is a strategy again. So I'm giving you free game right now, knowing that a strategy is applying what you have and then adding more evidence, just preparing for the RFE, either an RFE or the interview. Right, so you don't file, get your work permit, and then move on and start acting like you're now a U.S. citizen, because you're not. You still need to get your green card. So if you don't have a lot of joint evidence yet, just go ahead and file what you have. Obviously, you have your marriage license. You have some pictures, maybe from the wedding, right? There are certain things you can get with just your phone, like those pictures, those statements, without needing to actually put your name on anything yet. Let's just say you just got married. Again, there's no time limit. You got married today, you can file tomorrow. Right? It's going to be called a bare bones application, right? And that will be your way in. Just get in line and then prepare your stronger evidence for that RFE, because it's going to come. Okay, great question. Thank you for being here, all of you who asked, and those of you who keep on joining. Give me a thumbs up in the comments if you're getting some value today, because I know I'm spilling the tea over here, letting you all really see what you need to do before you file. And even if you file, like I said, there's still always a way out. So give me a thumbs up. Let's get this going. Okay. Another question here. Could a small mistake on my immigration application lead to a denial? No. No, that's the short answer. So a small mistake will not lead to a denial. It could lead to an RFE. It could just not lead to anything. And at the interview, you can go ahead and correct that mistake. Let's say it's a typo. Right, so I don't know what you really mean by small mistake, but really there are levels to the mistakes that can be made in any given application. So if it's a small mistake, like a typo, that could be fixed at the interview. Thank you, Laura, for the thumbs up, and Dane. So yeah, your definition of a small mistake, I'm not quite sure, but generally small mistakes can be a fix at the interview, or just with additional documents or whatever like that. So great question. Thank you for participating. Okay, what's the next one we have here? If my spouse refuses to help in my green card case, do I have any options? Certainly, girls, certainly. You have options. I was just trying to look for that DM I got earlier today because, yeah, I get this question all the time. My spouse refuses to help me. My spouse refuses to help me. And there was a lady I talked to the other day, 2 days ago. I actually have to send her some information. She actually she's now in removal proceedings and just wants a voluntary departure because she's like, I've just suffered in this country. I've been suffering all by myself, you know, working, just trying to make ends meet while the man is just wickeding her, taking her money, whatever, fine girl. And she's just like, I'm tired. And I was like, you know what? I feel you. But guess what? You have options. If your spouse has been emotionally abusive, financially abusive, and just refusing to help you, because refusing to help you is a form of manipulation and emotional abuse, you can certainly get your green card through a self petition. And so I'm getting these questions because people still don't know, as much as I talk about it all the time, a lot of people still don't know about it. Like I don't even understand. Well, you know what? Let me not even say because before I started actually practicing immigration law and doing VAWA, I also did not know about it. Right? So I believe if you don't have the mindset of, or how do I put this? Some people don't even think they're being abused. Let me put it that way. So they're not even looking for things like that. They just think this is normal marriage stuff. For me, I didn't have any, I wasn't trying to get a green card or anything like that. So I was just, thinking it was just going to be, normal marriage scenarios, right? But then, people, things change, people change, and situations change. Let me see if I can still find that DM. But yeah, you have options. Okay. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. What if the person stalls to file the paperwork after marriage? Right. This was from Kira on my DMs. Let me see what else she said. It was like a long DM, but that was the final question that she asked. Because she was on her student visa, and I'm pretty sure now she has probably lost that status because this man promised to file, and now they got married, and then the person is not filing. So very common. Okay, so don't waste your time. Don't worry about it. Just reach out to me, and we can help you get your green card. Now, filing a self petition does not mean that you have to divorce your spouse or you have to do anything drastic. Okay, it just means that you're gonna get your green card. Take care of yourself and your freedom. And if you want to work on your marriage, that's a whole different conversation for you and your spouse. Okay, I'm here to give you your freedom in this country so you're allowed to work, travel, and just be yourself. Right? Working and contributing to the community is one of the ways that we feel empowered as people. And if you can't do that because somebody is sitting on your destiny, sucks. Okay? Certainly, you want to get out of that. Okay, now let's go to this next question here. I just kind of peeped that is, and I was just like, OMG. This is like literally one of my pet peeves, fake marriage. Like, yuck. Okay, but sometimes your marriage might be real and it just looks fake because, again, you didn't know what type of evidence they were looking for. So that's just a different conversation, right? But if it's a fake marriage, like, it's just like, it boggles my mind, especially, when it's like a lady. Like, I don't really understand. You're paying a man to marry you or something. Like, what's that about? So every time I see that scenario, it really just grinds my gears because I know you're certainly suffering in that situation because he's going to take advantage of you. That's just standard, right? So, but if your marriage is real and USCIS just thinks it's fake, he can obviously win that through submitting more and more evidence. You have to build it up. You have to start a timeline from when you all met to when it turned into a romantic relationship, who proposed. Really have to go deep into that. right? I've had to do one of those. Really, what they even call them? There's a special name they call them. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, but um, I forgot. But I've had to do one of those types of cases where someone who was detained in ICE was married to a U.S. citizen, and um, they got married while he was in ICE, right? So we had to do that process. I'm still trying to think what it's called, but anyway, he ended up getting approved, and he's not in ICE anymore, obviously. But for you to prove really that you just didn't marry them to escape the consequences of immigration, right? Because if you're in removal, the next thing is deportation. So you want to avoid that, you're going to need a relief. And then you just randomly marry somebody, and then they're like, oh, so obviously they're going to think it's fake, right? So, but theirs was obviously real. Because of all the things that they did in between. So again, history, timeline is going to be very important to create your evidence packet. You need to break that down because, like I said, they don't know who you are. They just know your paperwork. So you need to break it down, make sure you tell them everything, how it happened, on birthdays, how you do things, like, except there's something going on here that nobody else knows, because if you're just a normal couple, at least birthdays and anniversaries, right, you already have that down pat. That's like 3 times in a year, because birthday for you, birthday for them, and your anniversary. Let's hope it's not all on the same day for all 3 of them, right? So you really have to try here, because the burden is on you. You're the one seeking the benefit, so you have to try to convince them that your marriage is real. Okay, I don't have any of my clients' permissions to share their, pictures and how we put it together here, but at my firm, we have a system on how we show the proof of bona fide relationship so that USCIS doesn't have any questions. And if they do, we already have a strategy for when they do, because sometimes, they might, because people, they have different stories, like I said, different backgrounds, different things, different violations, different things. Okay, I had a couple who were, I don't really know what they were, but I'll just say they were Amish, right? If you know what being Amish is, they weren't Amish, but they were something like that, right? Because of that, they obviously weren't taking many pictures. They don't even celebrate birthdays, just so many religious restrictions. And plus, on top of that, she didn't want to take the vaccine, the COVID, in fact, just any vaccines at all, because of the religion. So it was really a case that it just took some unwinding. It wasn't even that difficult because she got approved without an interview. And this was recent too, like maybe 2025, or was it 2024? I don't know. I feel like it was a time when nobody was getting approved without an interview. Well, she just got approved because they really did live that lifestyle. If USCIS showed up there, I don't know. They lived the lifestyle. So if you don't have enough evidence, or a lot of evidence, because of your lifestyle, and they think your marriage is fake, they're going to find ways to determine if it's real. They're going to come to your house. They're going to ask for more evidence. We're going to create that timeline, which is just all in writing, right? Because you have to swear like an affidavit. They tell them the truth. So if you write everything out, your statement's going to be on the record. And if for whatever reason in the future it comes out that was a lie, then problem, right? So I know I said a whole lot there, but yeah, long story short, you can always fix that if they think your marriage is fake. Okay, I'll roll through the next questions. Let's see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we have 5 more questions. I'll roll through. I'm looking in the chats to see if there's any live comments coming through. I just see the one from Sherpa earlier. Thank you again for participating. So if you all are feeling shy right now, you don't want to just talk in this group setting, that's fine. Understandable. Just reach out for a one-on-one talk. Okay, let's do this together. It's always better together, because the Bible says 2 shall take down 10,000. So don't play. Don't try to do this on your own and try to just complicate your life without the proper advice. Okay? So here's someone who needs some advice right now. This question says, if I was arrested in the past, but my case was dismissed, can it still affect my green card? Yes, it can totally affect your green card if you have a past arrest or conviction, whether the case was dismissed, expunged, or whatever. It could totally affect, because with immigration, they will check your entire history. They'll get your fingerprints. So anything around the world that involves you, if it's money laundering, forget it. You're done. You're not getting anything. But if it's just other types of crimes that are waivable, when you have a U.S. citizen spouse, they get waived. Okay, so it could still affect your green card, but it could get waived if it needs to. If it's something that can be waived. Okay, great question. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. Let's see, we've been here for about an hour now. Wow, today is a long one, guys. I don't know, I guess there's just a lot to say, but you can always watch this on your own time. If you're just seeing it on your For You page, if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe. Make sure you join us. Our next session is every Friday, okay? All right, this question says, can immigration deny my case because of something I did years ago? Yes. Okay, this is similar to the past arrest question, and the answer to that is always yes. Because immigration is about your history before you're able to join into this new country, because that's what it is, right? That's what we're doing. Come from your own country, you want to join a new country, they have to check your background, make sure you are who you say you are, and you didn't do anything in some other country that was crazy, right? And now you're coming here and pretending, right? So they're going to check everything you've done in your past. Can come back to certainly affect your eligibility for immigration. So, yeah, immigration can deny your case because of something you did years ago. So just be careful out there if you're interested in becoming a permanent resident and a U.S. citizen at some point. Okay? All right, final 3 questions. We'll get through that quickly here. It's Friday. I'm just excited to move on to the rest of the day. I have a lot of personal stuff going on, and it's actually my daughter's birthday week. All right, her birthday was yesterday, but we're still on that, and just so much going on. So let's just get through the last 3 questions. I will talk to you all, Monday, for those of you who are going to book. I'll talk to you one-on-one on Monday. So, but yeah, this one says, what happens if I receive a request for evidence and I don't understand what they're asking for? Oh, okay. What happens if you don't understand what they're asking for, and let's say you don't reply, or you reply and you send the wrong evidence? You're going to get denied. That's what happens. Okay? An RFE is a serious request from the government, from USCIS, because on there it tells you you have 30 days to respond. If we don't get a response, we're going to make a decision with the stuff we have now, which obviously is going to be a denial, because if they were going to approve it, they wouldn't have sent for the RFE. So if you don't understand what was being asked, you certainly need to consult with a professional. That's the only way you're going to get through that block. Okay, again, my people suffer for lack of knowledge. My people being human beings, everyone in the world. I'll add something else to that though, but I'll do that at the end, because I don't think it's just lack of knowledge. I think there's more to it. But in this scenario, you need to understand what they're asking you for in order to provide a proper response. And if you can't do that, right, you're certainly going to get a denial. Okay? So, certainly get a professional, understand what's going on, and yeah, I'm getting a call. Hello, someone calling me live? Oh, is this a butt dial? Okay, That was probably a butt dial. Okay. So don't let that be you. Don't be one of those couples that just essentially loses their spot in line by getting delayed, not responding properly, getting denied, having to do a reopen, just the whole thing. Don't be that. Okay. So next question. Can USCIS deny my case if my spouse and I live apart for work or family reasons? Okay, I'm glad that you added that because, generally USCIS will not deny a case for just living apart. But it's always great to know the reason why you live apart, right? Because if you essentially just live apart, I don't know, you live with roommates and you're just living like two single people, that would be problematic. But if you live apart because of work, family reasons, sometimes financial reasons, because you don't have money living with your parents or something like that, that's different. You have to explain. So your case will not be denied if you don't live with your spouse, but it's important to know why you don't live with your spouse. Okay, that will help you even better to avoid unnecessary denials. Okay, I've been getting so many calls today. I think it's just because everyone's in the mood for celebrating because it is Friday. Like I said, time to jump into all the fun for the weekend. I hope you all have something planned this weekend. March is like one of my busiest months because I know like 10 people born in March, like every other day. So we're doing something for one of the birthdays and it's just always fun. So yay, Pisces season. That's cool. So this is the last question I have here for you all. And then after that, we'll just call it a day. And I'll see you all next week. But yeah, if my case is denied, could I end up in removal proceedings? Yes. Immediately, yes. Because if your case is denied and you don't have any legal status in the US, they're going to send you a notice to appear in court to tell the judge why you should not be removed because you are here unlawfully. I'm thankful that they have that process and they're just not picking people up once they get denied or once they violate their immigration status, right? They have a process. Send you to court, you get the NTA, and with that, you essentially can plead your case, state your relief, let the judge know why you should not get denied, right away. And if you can do that, you're good to go. If not, you get deported. Okay? So that's that. Yeah. But I think, for today, I've really been able to show you all that you can avoid these mistakes by simply getting some legal guidance. And again, to what I was going to say earlier about knowledge, right? You can watch YouTube videos, watch me, take notes, understand the mistakes, right? Have the knowledge about what you need to do. But if you don't have wisdom, you're not going to apply that knowledge and you're going to be in the same position. So in this season of my life, I'm learning wisdom in everything that I'm doing. And I'm telling that to you all now to help you in your immigration journey and just in life in general. Wisdom is applying knowledge and experience in every decision that you're making. Okay, so if you learn things, you hear things, you see other people definitely making those mistakes, and you still go ahead and do the same thing, like, for example, marry somebody for a green card, like that, you guys don't really understand how that just annoys me so much. I'm really thankful that my parents had a visa that I could basically be part of with them and not have to marry anyone. But if I had to marry someone for a green card, I totally would not be in America right now, right? Because I won't do it. Like, ew. It's just so like, because marriage is so important, guys. And it's important, especially if you bring children into the world, right? Not really in the sense of whatever, legal status, or you're a married man or married woman. It's a union for procreation. So you can't just be jumping around and doing this with anyone, having kids, people having multiple lives. You have a whole family back home in Africa, and then you come here and impregnate another woman as if that child is not like a human being, just doing rubbish. All right. So that's lack of wisdom, because you saw how those actions affected people before you, and you just continued. You just still did it. You didn't find a legal professional to tell you what your options are. Talented people. I talked to a model the other day. A model. Like, when I saw her picture, I was just like, a model. And you went to do whatever kind of marriage to get green card. You didn't even think about other employment-based options with all your accolades and things that you have, received, nationwide or worldwide. So wisdom is key to success in everything that you do in life. And I'm certainly just moved today. I'm certainly, in the spirit today, Laura. So that's why it's the fave to tell you all this, because it's an opportunity and a privilege for me to be able to have this platform and talk to you all every week like this. So, but I'm talking and sharing this insight and sharing this knowledge to open up your mindset and let you know that there are options for you out there. But I also want you to take the next step and apply wisdom with every knowledge that you have learned to get someone beside you on this journey. It's going to be a year, 2 years, it could be up to 5, right? Between getting your green card and becoming a citizen, that's a lot of years, right? And we're here for the long term. We're here to support you. So I want you to take advantage of that with me today. So I'm going to wrap up now, because I think my team needs me for something else. Today we're still working, I guess. So I have to wrap up work and then go have my fun. But yeah, just wanted to leave you with that today on this live session. It is session 2, talking about avoiding mistakes, right? If you're interested in really getting that success one time. So that's my final word for today. I wish you all a wonderful rest of your Friday. Go enjoy with your family. Be thankful for everything that you have. And that's it. Happy Friday. Bye. Thank you. Oh, you're still here. Thank you, Sherpa. That's the only name I could make out from your entire handle, but it works out. Thank you very much. You are welcome. All right. Bye, guys. Bye.